Rassie Erasmus broke the internet with a meme. Not a press conference, not a carefully worded statement. A clip from The Wolf of Wall Street with Tony Brown's face edited over Leonardo DiCaprio's and 5 words, "I'm not leaving." Then, just to make sure nobody missed the point, he posted an AI-generated video of Tony Brown saying the same thing in a New Zealand accent. It was delivered with the kind of casual confidence that only Rassie can pull off. No explanation, no context, no apology. Just the message, loud and clear, wrapped in a pop culture reference that the rugby world would be talking about for days. That was Rassie's full stop on one of rugby's biggest stories in recent memory. 3 days earlier, New Zealand Rugby had sacked Scott Robertson, 2 years into a 4-year contract. The man who'd guided the All Blacks through the post-Steve Hansen rebuild, who'd won 7 Super Rugby titles with the Crusaders, who was supposed to be the beginning of a new era for New Zealand Rugby, was out. The decision sent shockwaves through the sport. And the moment that news landed, the rugby world had the same 2 thoughts in quick succession: Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown. That wasn't idle speculation. It wasn't journalists filling column inches. It was the latest chapter in a story that had been building for years, and everyone who had been paying attention knew it. If you made it this far, you already know. Hit subscribe and press the bell icon. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Brown is a New Zealander through and through. He played fly half for the All Blacks. He understands the system, the culture, the expectations that come with that jersey from the inside. And when he moved into coaching, it became clear very quickly that he had a rare gift, the ability to look at a group of players and see the attacking game they were capable of before they could see it themselves. His partnership with Jamie Joseph produced Super Rugby success at the Highlanders. Then they took that partnership to the Sunwolves and eventually to Japan, building a national team that earned genuine respect on the global stage. At the 2023 World Cup, he honored every day of his commitment to Joseph and the Japanese program before even entertaining any other conversation about his future. New Zealand Rugby was watching all of it. They approached him under Ian Foster. He said no. They came back under Robertson. He said no again. Each time, the reason was the same. He had a commitment, and he was going to see it through. That consistency tells you everything about how Brown operates. He is not someone who chases opportunity the moment something shinier appears on the horizon. He finishes what he starts. When that commitment was finally complete, he didn't go home. He joined Rassie. That surprised a lot of people who assumed Brown was inevitably heading back to New Zealand. It shouldn't have surprised anyone who understood how he thinks about coaching. Rassie didn't offer him comfort or familiarity. He offered him the most interesting coaching puzzle in world rugby. How do you take the most physically dominant team on the planet and make them impossible to defend against at the same time? The numbers from the 2025 season answer that question better than any explanation could. Before Brown's arrival, the Springboks averaged 2.6 tries per game. Under him, that rose to 3.4. Across the 2024 Rugby Championship, South Africa led the entire competition in tries scored, line breaks, and running meters, while simultaneously maintaining one of the lowest turnover rates in the tournament. But here's the stat that stops every conversation cold. Compared to before Brown's arrival, the Springboks were building 27 more rucks per game and making 40 more passes per game. Not slightly more, dramatically more, against the same opponents in the same matches without giving the ball away any more often. They didn't just play more rugby, they played better rugby at a higher volume without losing control of it. What that creates on the field is a genuine tactical dilemma for every team that faces them. Commit defenders to the set piece and the maul, and you leave space out wide for the attack Brown has designed around exactly that defensive choice. Defend the width aggressively, and you leave the driving line out and the physicality at the breakdown that has been winning South Africa Test matches for years. Neither option is safe. Both choices cost you something. That is Tony Ball. That is what Brown built inside a squad that was already the best in the world. The clearest symbol of what he's constructed? Malcolm Marx, a hooker, won World Rugby Player of the Year. Think about what that means. The position that anchors the set piece, manages the lineout, and leads the forward pack at the breakdown is now also one of the most dangerous ball-carrying threats in open play. That is not an accident. That is the system working exactly as it was designed to work, with a forward becoming a weapon in space because the game plan demands it and the coaching has delivered it. And yet, remarkably, Brown himself said the 2025 Springboks were by no means the finished product. Read that again slowly. The team that swept Europe unbeaten across 2 separate end-of-year tours, that dominated the Rugby Championship across every attacking metric, that conceded the fewest points while scoring the most tries, that team, according to the man who designed their entire attack, still hasn't come close to its ceiling. If that doesn't concern every other coaching group in World Rugby, they simply aren't paying attention. When reporters pressed Rassie directly in Brown's future in early 2026, he confirmed Brown was staying through to the 2027 World Cup under his current contract. But then he said something that Springbok fans should file away carefully. He acknowledged openly and without any embarrassment that it is Tony Brown's ambition to one day coach the All Blacks. He said it as a fact, not as a threat, not as a negotiating tactic. That is a very Rassie thing to do. He kills the speculation publicly with a meme, then calmly and honestly confirms the underlying reality because he is confident enough in what the Springbok program offers that he doesn't need to pretend the ambition doesn't exist. Brown himself has been equally straightforward about it. One day, maybe, but right now, he just wants to be part of this coaching setup and the Springboks over the next 4 years. 4 years. That timeline ends in Australia at the 2027 World Cup. SA Rugby is already working to push that timeline even further. Ryan Oberholster, the SA Rugby chief executive, confirmed that contract extensions through to 2031 have been offered to Brown and the other senior assistants. Rassie is already signed to 2031. The vision is a full decade of continuity, a coaching group that doesn't tear itself apart between World Cup cycles and start again from scratch, but instead refines, builds, and compounds what it already knows. That adds a genuinely frightening layer to a system that Brown himself has already said is nowhere near its peak. The New Zealand media didn't receive the meme with much grace. Commentator Scotty Stevenson went on air and called Rassie childish and disrespectful, arguing the post did a disservice to Scott Robertson and that it was nothing more than pot-stirring. He also, in almost the same breath, called the New Zealand Rugby Board a pack of clowns for how they handled the Robertson sacking, for running a review that excluded Wayne Smith, who was literally on their payroll, and for a process he described as neither fair nor transparent. So the board are clowns for their handling of Robertson, but Rassie posting a 5-word meme confirming his coach is staying. That's the real problem. The self-awareness is truly something to behold. Rassie heard every word of it. He always does. He just doesn't care. And that indifference to media noise is one of the things that makes him so effective in a sport where that noise is constant and relentless. The biggest individual development story inside the Springbok camp heading into 2026 is Sasha Feinberg-Makosi. In patches during 2025, most notably his 9.5 Player of the Match performance against Argentina, he showed exactly the kind of decision-making under pressure that Brown's system requires at fly half. The read before the defensive line closes, the split-second choice between holding the ball carrier or moving it wide, the timing that makes the correct option look simple when you execute it right. Getting him to that level of consistency across an entire test season is the most significant challenge currently sitting inside the Springbok program, because when that piece fully locks into place, when Brown has a fly half delivering Tony ball at the level the system is genuinely capable of reaching, the Springboks stop being a team with an elite attack and become something the sport has never really encountered before. Set-piece dominant, physically superior, defensively elite, and with an attacking game that presents no single weakness for any opponent to target and exploit. The 2026 calendar has been mapped with Australia 2027 clearly in mind, the Nations Championship against England, Scotland, and Wales, 4 tests against the All Blacks, 3 in South Africa, the 4th on neutral ground in Baltimore, then France, Italy, and Ireland in November. Every phase of that schedule represents a deliberate step in a carefully constructed progression. The 2024 season was the foundation. The 2025 season was the proof. The 2026 season is the refinement. And refinement, applied to a team that is already the best in the world by any meaningful measure, might genuinely be the most frightening word in rugby right now. One last thing worth sitting with as that series approaches. In August, the All Blacks, whoever their new head coach turns out